Collaborate to Educate, or SONS CEOS, is a nonprofit, multi-faith organization that endeavors to help youth achieve their full potential. The organization is built on a core set of values, including trust, character, faith, and service at the local, national, and international levels. We provide programs and services focused on training and mentoring young men, parents, teachers, and mentors. We do this by conducting workshops, delivering valuable training and correspondence, and providing scholarships to deserving youth. We accept contributions for scholarships, workshops, and the online educational training platform we'll be constructing shortly. This town hall meeting is designed to assist parents and students gain strength, strategies, and knowledge to cope in this unplanned for but new environment. Let us begin with prayer offered by Chris Daly, CEOS board member and digital strategist.
Let us pray. Our God, we come with thankful hearts for the gift of life and for the gift of possibilities this evening. We come seeking resources to help us navigate the challenges of this coronavirus. We are indeed thankful for the generosity of the CEOS group, for the awesome moderator, for the all-star panel that's in place to give us seasoned wisdom and insight and fresh hope. We look forward to the gems of healthcare and job care we'll be receiving this evening. Prepare our hearts, our ears, and our minds to be blessed by the wisdom that will be shared. Give us the strength of purpose that we'll seize the moment and seize the ideas shared and to put them into practice. Amen and amen.
Amen. Thank you, Chris. The topic for today's town hall is social distancing or physical distancing, COVID-19 and after. My bias is physical as our moderator. She is no stranger to us. She's a Peabody award-winning producer, performer, and host of the #1 Sunday afternoon gospel music program on 96.3 WHUR. This year, 2020, marks Ms. Webb's 30th year of providing her special mix of gospel music and history to the Washington, D.C. metropolitan area. Join me in welcoming Ms. Webb. Welcome, and over to you, Jackie.
Thank you so much, Dr. Melbourne, and thank you for all that you do with CEOS. Congratulations to all of the hardworking volunteer staff that makes this organization possible. Thank you so much to Chris for that great opening prayer. There are more than 93,000 coronavirus cases diagnosed in DC, Maryland, and Virginia. 3,832 in the DMV have died. Prince George's County, Maryland is the hardest hit area in the state with 484 deaths and over 13,000 cases. Northern Virginia plans to begin phase 1 of its reopening plan on Friday. Under phase 1, restaurant and beverage businesses can operate with outdoor seating at 50% capacity if they have permits for outdoor seating. Non-essential retail stores can operate at 50% occupancy, and places of worship can operate at 50% capacity. And everyone in the state of Virginia will need to wear a face mask starting Friday. Charles County, Maryland prepares to move into its phase 1 of reopening. DC Mayor Muriel Bowser is monitoring the situation and will announce tomorrow whether the district will be able to lift some of the coronavirus-related restrictions on Friday. All of the other counties are trying to figure it out. But no matter when and how our local governments ease restrictions, most of us worry if we will be really safe. What will socializing be like? What will we have to do in order to be safe at home, at school, in church, in the workplace? What will happen to our economy? What will all of this mean for us? With us today, we have two very distinguished guests to help us explore some of these questions. Dr. E. Albert Reese is Vice President for Medical Affairs, John Z. and Akiko K. Bowers Distinguished Professor and Dean of the School of Medicine at the University of Maryland. His primary appointment is Professor Obstetrics, Gynecology, and Reproductive Sciences in the Department of Obstetrics and Gynecology, Medicine, and Biochemistry, and Molecular Biology. And he is a member of the prestigious Institute of Medicine of the National Academy of Sciences. Also joining us is Miss Donna Johnson Scott, a servant leader serving as the executive director and senior human resources business partner for Adventist Healthcare, White Oak Medical Center. She is in her 13th year with AHC and in her current role since 2016. She's been a member of the executive committee for the National Association of Adventist Healthcare Human Resources and is currently president. Welcome to Dr. Reese and to Miss Donna Johnson Scott. We also have with us today Nkose Plummer, who has been with us from the beginning of these town hall sessions, and he is going to ask some questions coming from our younger audience, questions that were rounded up before this broadcast, and I'm sure questions that he has on his mind also. As we begin, we want to ask our two guests to give us 7 minutes of introductions of yourself and also an approach to your perspective on this topic of what life is going to be like following this new normal, if there is going to be such a thing, the coronavirus epidemic or pandemic, what's going to happen to us after. So let's begin with Miss Donna Johnson Scott. If you could give us your perspective, 7 minutes, and then we'll ask Dr. Albert Reese to give us 7 minutes. And Donna, you want to take yourself off mute.
Got that? Thank you, Jackie, for that.
You're welcome.
Introduction. I'd like to just introduce my colleagues who are joining me here today in support and to also answer some of the questions we may get along the way. Yasmin Nasser serves as our Director of Learning and Leadership Organizational Development for Adventist Healthcare. Brendan Johnson, who is our Senior Vice President of Human Resources, and Gail Prasad, who serves as a Senior HR Business Partner. As we look at COVID-19, in my role as the lead human resources director for White Oak Medical Center, I must say that our industry has changed. No industry has remained unaffected. There's a wise saying, when you can't change the direction of the wind, you adapt your sails. Change is inevitable. Now, is it social distancing or physical distancing in the HR world? Well, for your health and safety in the healthcare industry, we do encourage physical distancing, but please stay connected. Social networking has evolved. Meetings have evolved. Let me spend a couple seconds talking with our recent graduates who may be using technology, for example, to make an impression. Please keep your social media footprint elevated. Use the highest level of integrity in your social media connection. There'll be lots of employers who have chosen to use virtual platforms for interviews for or graduates entering the workforce. Focus on making a great impression. Your speech, your background, your attire. What does your background look like when you sit down to have an interview? How do you build a successful career while social distancing? Plan a dedicated space. Make sure you have all the tools that you need. Now, I'd like to talk a little bit to our leaders who now have to lead a remote team. There's psychological impact that you have to deal with. Communicate precise and concise. Focus on outcome. And of course, trust. Now, there are some rules that we recommend for virtual meeting etiquette. As you move into meetings, as you look to build your career, dress appropriately. Stay away from the keyboard. I'm going to go through these quickly, but I hope we have a chance to develop these further at another time or further in this conversation. Be aware of your surroundings. The children should probably be in a separate room, or the dog should not be barking. Mute your microphone when you're not talking. It's amazing the things you hear during a conversation. Speak up, project your voice. Probably save the food for later. Stay seated, stay present. Now, there's also another area, and I'm going to invite Yasmin Nasser to talk a little bit about maintaining a healthy outlook and a robust support system, which is crucial. Who supports your journey during this time? And so now I'd like to hand this over to my colleague, Yasmin Nasser, to share some guidelines on building your support system in this new era.
Thank
Yasmin?
you. Yes, thank you, Donna. I'm not sure if they can see the slide though. No? Okay. So yes, I did want to talk about building a robust support system and how important that is when you start off in your career and throughout your career. And so even though, there's a difference between physical distancing and social distancing, as Donna said, you want to honor that physical distancing, but you also want to build your social network. And so it's really important to be very strategic and very intentional about how you build that support system for yourself, because it's going to be a tool to get you to the next level. And by that I mean, oftentimes when we ask leaders, well, who is in your support system? Usually we say our friends, our family, people who we can go to and talk to, and that kind of happens naturally. But when we are intentional and strategic about the people who we want in our support system, we think about those people who can play a role in our development. So for example, the way that you would use this tool is you would ask yourself, well, what am I experiencing now? So for example, if I'm experiencing disconnection, I'm not connected to people in a way that I need to be to maybe learn about something or get into a group or some sort of a network, then what I do is I make sure that I know what my outcome wants to be. So I want to be socially connected. That's the outcome that I want. So who do I need in my support system to be able to connect me with other people? Maybe a referral agent, somebody who knows a lot of people, who is able then to introduce me to different groups or organizations. Maybe I'm feeling isolated because now I have to stay at home. So then what is the outcome that I want from that? Well, I want to be socially connected to my friends and family. So maybe I need to reach out to a friend. Or maybe I'm feeling a plateau in my career. Maybe I'm kind of along the way and I'm sort of just there and I'm stagnating, but I want to get to the next level. So maybe I need a role model or subject matter expert who is going to be in my support network, who's going to take me to that next level. So it's just keeping in mind where I want to go, where you want to go in your career, and making sure that you have the right people in your circle surrounding you and giving you the support that you need to be able to get to the next level in your career. And so just keeping in mind that you can be intentional and strategic, and you can have a plan for moving forward, even during these very difficult times when we feel like we need to be away from people. This is really the time when we need to reach out the most.
Thank you very, very much, Yasmin, for pointing out to us that we all need our own board of directors, our personal board of directors, and what a fitting phrase to have in an organization called CEOS. CEOS.
That's right. Perfect.
But that is so true, so true. And I have witnessed people getting some really good jobs during this pandemic. It's amazing how even though people aren't going to job interviews in person, they're doing it virtually. It's working and they are getting work. So there is hope. So we're going to turn next to Dr. Albert Reese. Doctor, can you please give us 7 minutes?
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for inviting me. What I thought I would do is sort of put things in context. And we use the term, we're always exposed to this coronavirus and the quarantine and the effects of it. But I thought I would start in a very basic way, so at least we fully understand what it is. What is coronavirus? Where did it come from? What does it do? How does it really have its impact? And then it'll be much more contextual to understand how it impacts our lives and what our lives may be like subsequently. So coronaviruses represent a family of viruses called RNA viruses. We know about DNA, but RNA is really a copy, basically almost a photocopy of the DNA. So the difference is the DNA is double-stranded and RNA is single-stranded. So it's a single-stranded copy of DNA. That's the kind of viruses that make up the coronavirus, RNA. Scientists have identified hundreds of coronaviruses. And so they're called corona. The question is, why are they called corona? Well, if you look on the virus, it has a membrane. And on the membrane, there are lots of little stubs. It's called spikes. And these are proteins. And these spike proteins have a crown-like look. And that's why they're called corona, meaning crown-like. So that gives you an idea of just on the appearance. Now these viruses are what's called zoonotic. That means they're often starting out in animals and they can spread to humans. That's what zoonotic means. The viruses, this family of viruses have varying levels of intensity. We call it virulence. Some are very potent in their infectivity. Some are very potent in their transmission. The one we're dealing with now is extremely potent in its transmissibility, as you've noticed. But over the past 20 years, we've had two serious outbreaks of coronaviruses. One that is called SARS, one that occurred in 2002, and one that's called MERS in 2012. What is SARS? SARS is basically severe acute respiratory syndrome. And that's important. Hold that thought for a moment. MERS is really Middle East respiratory syndrome. So you see they both have a respiratory effect. And we've heard that the coronavirus, the COVID-19, people often end up on a respirator because it's acting in a similar manner. But both SARS and MERS, when they occurred, one in 2002, one in 2012, had a much higher killing rate. More people died from SARS and MERS. COVID-19 has a much higher transmission rate. It transmits very, very highly. So what I thought I would do is rather ask some questions to myself. Number, why is it called COVID-19? Well, CO is corona. VI, vi is virus. So corona for CO, virus, VI, and D for disease. So really, this is describing the disease as opposed to the virus. That's where 19 comes from. Well, it came 2019. So it's COVID-19, 2019. COVID disease 2019. Now, it's called novel. Why is it novel? In fact, someone asked me very recently, why is this virus called a novel virus? Well, it is because it's never been seen in humans before. Never. It's a new virus. It's new. So begin thinking about if it's something is new that we have never seen before, then its manifestations will be new, which we have never seen before. So that becomes important. Now, how does it spread? And then this question will link to the topic today, social or physical distancing. It's spread by droplets. When as you speak, or you sneeze, or sometimes as you breathe heavily, there will be some level of droplets from your mouth that may come out. It's called droplet infections. And these droplets can be transmitted from one person to another. That's why the mask becomes important to contain your droplets, to prevent others. But why is it? Why distancing? The distance is because one estimates that the distance between someone having a droplet that would exit someone's mouth or nose may take a few feet before they fall to the ground. So 6 feet is an arbitrary number used to really estimate the distance. Another question that someone asks is, can it be transmitted by food? Well, there's no data on that. It's really by droplet infection. And now the question is, how do we treat it? How do we prevent it? This brings us to kind of what life will be like. Now, there really is no comprehensive treatment. There is no vaccine. At the University of Maryland, we've been involved with at least 2 vaccine trials nationwide. And we also were involved with the most recent medication trial. And you know, it's an antiviral medication called remdesivir. And that's approved by the FDA. So it's used to treat patients who are hospitalized and given intravenously. But those who are exposed, there is no treatment. There is no prevention because the vaccine is not yet made. And there are at least about 100 vaccine trials going on at the same time. At least 2 types of vaccine you should keep in mind. One is where you can actually use a part of the virus called viral particles to try to initiate antibodies. Or there's another type, it's called giving the viral code. Not the virus itself, just genetic code. And so those are the 2 types of vaccine that are being given. Well, until we have a vaccine, life will be a modification of what we're doing now. We have to find ways to distance, as the former speaker said, not necessarily social distance, but physical. We need to be physically separated somewhat so we're not catching someone's droplets, or wear masks, we're not catching the droplets of somebody else. And of course, surfaces. The viruses can't live on surfaces long term, but they can live for a reasonable amount of time. So it's important that we understand that this is a virus. It's new. We've never seen it before. We have no preventive treatment. We have no comprehensive treatment. We have one treatment right now. It's remdesivir. That's for very severely ill patients who are hospitalized. And so until we do a vaccine, we will have to find a way of modifying our lifestyle. Doing what we do now, using Zoom a lot, using WebEx, using various forms of
Doctor, if you can hear me, I'd like to ask you if you have a cell phone near your computer, can you shut it off or move it away. Sometimes cell phones interfere with your computers talking to your Wi-Fi. And we had a whole lot of interference while you were speaking. And I want to make sure that we hear you, because what you have to say is very, very important. I'm going to turn right now to Miss Donna Johnson Scott and ask you about something that is on many minds. Those of us who work, those of us who are looking for work. There are so many reports about the high rate of unemployment. How will this affect those who are just starting out in the workforce, or those who were looking for work, or those who might have lost their jobs during this season? And we want to take yourself off of mute.
There we are. Thank you, Jackie. I'd like to invite my colleagues to join me as we answer these questions, because we have so many different perspectives and experiences in the HR world around some of the
Donna,
questions.
sorry, I have to break in a minute here. Could you increase your volume a little for us, please? We're not hearing you clearly.
Oh my, is that better? Did I? Any change?
Sounds louder to me.
All right, thank you so much. I was saying that I'd like to invite my colleagues here on the line to join me in answering, some of the questions that may come from the panel and others today. Brendan, would you like to take a stab at that first question from Jackie?
Yeah, and Jackie, I appreciate the opportunity here, and Donna for bringing us together. As we heard from Dr. Reese, some of these things are going to be unknown as far as what the timeline is for us to be able to get back to work. And I think that on the medical team, you can really handle a lot of that long impact. Some of the questions we've had is, with the 30 million plus that are unemployed right now, what does that look like? And I would say that within the next few months, we don't anticipate there being a creation of 30 million jobs. I can also say that within the next 3 years, I don't think that we're going to have 30 million unemployed. If you go back and look at kind of what we're looking at least in healthcare right now, where we've had many services that have remained open throughout this whole time, the ICUs, the EDs, respiratory therapy. We're also trying to bring back other parts of our business in phases. We're starting to do elective procedures. We're starting to do some outpatient therapy, some outpatient imaging. And I would almost look at it a little bit as a microcosm of what I would anticipate happening with the economy. I think that over the next 2 to 3 years, you're going to see many non-essential businesses that start opening up over the next couple of years. For those of you that, why we say kind of 2 to 3 years, for those of you that are Redskins fans, first of all, I'm sorry in general. But if you're also Caps fans or Nats fans, I can't picture a world in the next couple of years where you've got 70,000 people packed in close to each other, even if you're all wearing a mask. I think it's going to take time for a vaccine. It's going to take time for some of that immunity, as Dr. Reese was talking about, to really bring us back to a normal within the next few years. But I think that we're going to get back to a normal. And one of the things that's interesting, if you look at our broad economics, the last time that we had a devastating pandemic across the world was back in 1918 during the Spanish flu, where there's an estimated 50 million people that passed away. And while the coronavirus has been very devastating, we've had just over 300,000 people that have passed away, which is less than 1% of what they encompassed back in 1918. And the 1920s were also known as the Roaring 20s because of what you were able to see the economy come back as and the cultural influences that were able to take place. And I would anticipate seeing something very similar, where I don't think that a depression will last as long as it did during the 30s. I see a lot of areas coming back here within the next couple of years. Now, there'll be some businesses that may go out of business. I'm very fearful right now for the small business community. But I think that you're also going to see that if there's one thing that we've done well by pumping dollars back into the economy, historically, we've not always been great at saving money as a United States group of people. So we're going to have at some point in the next couple of years, those shiny cars that are discounted look really good, or the airfare down to Cabo look really good. And so I think that over the next couple of years, you are going to have people start jumping back into the economy again. It may not be 2 to 3 months, but I don't think it's going to be 2 to 3 years later. And Donna and Gail, Yasmin, I'll let you talk a little bit about the short term, as we've talked about. Summer internships that have been canceled, summer jobs that have been canceled. What kind of skill sets important to really focus on if you're a graduating senior? We've got some great tips there as well. But on the macroeconomics, it's hard to see it right now, but I don't think this is a humanity changer. I think that this is going to be something that gets phased back to where we were over the next 2 to 3 years.
Very good, Brendan. Thank you so much. Any more from?
I would certainly like to encourage our graduates entering the workforce or individuals who may be looking for employment. It's okay. This is a great time to try something new. You may find employment in an area that you were not expecting to be engaged in. Try volunteering. Lots of volunteering opportunities out there that can allow you to find a trajectory into a job. It's amazing the connections that you make through volunteering with large organizations. Gail?
Me? You're talking to me?
Oh, there are two Gails.
No, I'm Jackie. That's
Gail,
okay.
Gail,
I was looking. Which one is Gail?
And Gail, you're on mute. You might have to unmute.
You can't hear me?
Oh, we can hear you, Jackie. The other Gail.
Jackie, Gail.
Oh, Gail. Oh, okay. There is a Gail. Okay, yes.
Yes. So as Donna was saying about volunteering, I think now is a great time. If people have thought that maybe all is lost, now is a great time to think differently and walk into a new world and volunteer and be strong and be brave about trying different things and new things that you never thought would be possible. Now is the time to actually prove to yourself that you can actually be flexible with all the things that's going on and adapt to the new environment.
That's right. When challenges, there are opportunities.
One last thing that I would say, I love the name of this group. I love the CEOs, as you've mentioned, that being the name of this group. And I would say that now is a perfect time to put yourself in two perspectives. As you look at what companies are doing, as you look at what those with jobs are doing, put yourselves in the shoes of the leaders that are having to make these decisions right now. Whether you agree with the decisions or whether you disagree with the decisions, try and put yourself in the shoes of that. What are the decisions you would make differently? How would you communicate it differently? Who's doing a good job communicating it and who has opportunities? Because you can read about a lot of these, in Harvard Business Review in 2 or 3 years. But while we're going through this, there's a lot to be learned as you're looking to learn leadership, just by putting yourselves in the shoes of a lot of these people making decisions today.
Excellent. Excellent. I just want to ask Dr. Reese one more question before I turn it over to Nkose Plummer to ask some questions from our participants that were given to him before. Dr. Reese, some will have to return to the workforce, meaning the workplace rather. Where they work might have an elevator. Definitely where they work will have bathrooms, shared bathrooms. And also when we are exercising, when we're jogging, when we're at the beach, we have to think about social distancing. What precautions should we take when getting in an elevator or using a public restroom facility or being outside at a restaurant or just walking along the beach? You talked about the droplets. What do we have to look out for? How can we stay safe?
I think there are at least a few things that we can do. One, if you're going to be in an elevator, and you'll be with other folks, then you should wear a mask. Not only, again, a mask doesn't necessarily protect you; it protects the other person because your droplets coming out. On the other hand, you would hope that persons are also wearing a mask to protect you. In addition, either you have glove on, so you're not touching the surfaces, or you not have a glove, but you're willing to basically wash your hands or use the disinfectant right as you very copious. So when you're in a crowded situation with an elevator or just mixing with people as you go back to work, you should wear a mask. That's a fundamental way of protecting yourself. Number one. Number two, you should not be hugging or shaking hands or engaging because again, viruses can be on surfaces. So those are at least the simple ways that you can to the extent possible try to have some distance if you can.
Thank you. And Jose, your questions.
Good afternoon, everyone. So I have a list of questions that I've collected from my peers, and I'm just grateful, to have this opportunity for you guys to answer them. One of the questions that I have is, society is currently torn between those who are still social distancing and those who are pretty much tired with social distancing, and so they're out doing whatever they want. I've seen pictures of like beaches, or I've seen pictures of like large groups of people at a park. What do you think about this? What are your thoughts on this? Do you think that it's healthy, that people are going out to, come back to a new normal? Or do you think that we should continue social distancing? Just what are your thoughts on this?
Well, I think it's fairly fundamental. It all it if your interest is in health and preserving your health and preserving life, then it's fundamental that you do social distancing. It sort of reminds me of years ago when smoking was very cool, and people knew that it caused lung cancer, not associated with, but caused lung cancer. But they just didn't think that it really is going to affect them. So it's sort of the people who are risk takers and saying, I know that this is bad. I know that it can cause cancer, but I'm not inhaling, or I'm only doing cigars, or I'm only doing this. And they're willing to take risks. So likewise, we have a virus for which we have no treatment. We have no vaccine. And it's also no. And not to kill people, but it also maims people. Those who have actually survived, some of whom, not all, some of whom have residual either mental or other health problems for a long time. Somewhere will take a risk and say, well, I'm not going to get it. Or if I get it, I will not be the ones to have long-term consequences, or I will not have complications, and I will not die. Then they go out and have a party. That's the freedom of taking your own risks. From my perspective, it's more of a public health perspective, and that is, I took an oath to preserve life and endorse living. So I have to recommend to people the best strategies to preserve their health and life, and I practice that myself.
Thank you for that answer. Just connecting with another question, there's also been pictures of quote unquote the new norm restaurants putting up um, like screens in between tables, or screens in supermarkets, etc. What do you think is the new normal? How do you view the new normal when it comes to public gatherings? Does anyone have any ideas on how that will look in the future?
Well, until there'll be at least a, a few futures, if you will. There'll be a future before the vaccine, and there's a future in early post-vaccine, and a future in late post-vaccine. So the future right now is as many precautions as we can take. Um, Schools are going to be different. Classrooms are going to be different. We're going to have more online classes or small group classes where people can have some spread between individuals. The supermarket glass is just basically a shopkeeper or the owner trying to find ways to protect their customers. So those are just basically strategies that various individuals are using to try to have a normal life while at the same time protecting one from the other. and various other types of approaches will be used. I'll give you one example. Now, in ophthalmology, your face is almost close to the doctor who's looking in your eyes. It's hard to get a social distance while at the same time viewing your eyes. So now people are developing technologies to, as opposed to sitting right into your face, to have something done through more or less a video approach, or another one I've come up with a screen that goes down in front. So creative ways are being developed as we speak. Right now, there's one where you can actually take your temperature and it automatically goes into your cell phone. So creative ways are coming to so that you can monitor yourself, you can protect yourself. Um, Institutions are taking temperature at the door when you come in to schools. So I think to the extent that businesses, schools, various enterprises are developing creative ways of screening, monitoring, or protecting yourselves until the vaccine is here.
Very good, very good. I want to throw this next question out to Brendan, Yasmin, Gail, and Donna. Many of us who had started this working from home since the coronavirus actually love it. We really don't want to go back to the office. We could just continue to work from home and be perfectly happy. But there is something to be said about actually being in the room with the people that you are meeting with. Zoom is great, but there's, out of sight, out of mind. If people are in the office and you're not, you might be left out of things. Do you see any potential problems with working, a vast majority of the workforce working from home and not actually physically being with their colleagues in the workplace?
Well, I'd like to take a stab at that because I've actually experienced that myself, right? I think as a leader, leading a team, I am responsible for making sure that I connect my team with myself and with each other, and that I'm really mindful about checking in with each one of my members almost every day. Meaning, I could use video, I could use text, I could use email, whatever works best for my team member. But I could almost feel the immediate response of my team member. Reaching out to them is really important. And so I think that there's an accountability piece on the part of the leader. And then there's also the accountability piece of the team member, right? So, making sure that they ask the right questions, or, they ask for a meeting, or whatever it takes to make sure that you stay connected. Because there are people that do like to be home, but there are people who may be more extroverted, and so they need that connection and they need to feed off of that energy. And so just being really mindful and aware that you need to keep those check-ins frequent and consistent all the time.
Thank you.
Jackie, I would say I agree with you, Yasmin. Lucky for you, Jackie, I think there's always going to be an opportunity to find a place to work from home if that's important to you. I think if you look at many large companies were already looking at remote work even before the pandemic. One of the most expensive things that lives on a business sheet is the office space. Buying the office space, renting the office space, that's a huge investment up front for companies. And as they're developing tools and ways to continue to be productive remotely, I think you may have some companies and some industries that don't shift back to an in-person type of environment. But there's enough service industries and there's enough people, I think, that do crave the social aspects of being able to work with people, that to Yasmin's point, you have to be flexible as a leader. You can't treat everybody the same when it comes to leadership and building relationships. And you really need to make sure that the team that reports to you feels empowered to say, I don't get a chance to talk with you enough. I don't get a chance to see you enough. I need to hear from you more. And I would say, as we again go through, as Dr. Reese was talking about the different phases of getting to normal, I think that you're going to have more rotation based things where you rotate in on Fridays for a meeting, or you work Monday and Wednesday with a certain group of people, and Tuesday and Thursday you work from home. Talking to some public health experts, they said rotating is not good during a pandemic, because then you have everybody rotating in and bringing what they have from home. But as you get more into a new normal, I think you're going to see more of those type of hybrid positions available.
All right. Ankose, do you have any more questions?
Yes. One question I have right here: in what ways is social distancing affecting our society, in an environmental and economic way?
That's from whom?
Doctor?
Well, it is changing how we interact. In an economic way, clearly, I think you've seen what's happening across the country. Now, clearly, as the country has shut down and slightly opening up, you see businesses have been impacted significantly in our measure, because we closed everything down at first, appropriately so, and I'm very supportive of that. I mean, that's what has happened throughout the world, so it really has had an economic impact. However, the question is, what is really the cost of life? So, 100 lives have been lost, 100,000 lives have been lost so far with even despite shutdown. And we see that in some countries and some states where less is being done, you'll see how difficult it has been. So clearly, I would say yes, it can affect and does affect the economy, but until we do have a vaccine, certain sacrifices that will have to be made.
I'd respond to that question. I interview an awful lot of ministers, and one minister who is leading a church that was prepared technologically to stream sermons and collect donations online. She said, I may have lost a pulpit, but I gained a platform. And it's so true, because churches have been streaming and doing extremely well, reaching more people online than they actually did when people were coming into the church. And people continue to give and continue to worship. And I've had so many people to tell me that they are so thrilled to be able to go online and hear different preachers and sermons that they would not if they were going to their physically going to their home church because of time. But on the other hand, what's lost is the physical contact with being in your place of worship, your synagogue, your mosque, your church, with others worshiping God in a close and connective physical way. So I want to ask the doctor, have you talked to people in the religious community about what church life will really be like when we are returning back to the churches physically?
Well, the answer is yes. I have spoken to a number of pastors um, who have, all of whom have made adjustments in their church, basically have virtual church. And what's interesting, just as you said, many have said to me that they have seen an uptick in the activities, the listening audience, or the viewing audience, I guess, now than before. Now, one may say it's because they have more time. Well, at a minimum, one has to say they have more interest, because if they didn't have interest, they wouldn't be tuning in. Now, the question is what's going to happen after? And I would suspect that there will be some habits that will fall off, because there's the opportunity to do both. You could either view in, go online, or come in physically. I also think that if I can use the classrooms as an example for the churches and pulpit, it is believed that schools will not be the same. Universities, I meant, will not be the same. There will be more online education and smaller classes than they were before, because people now realize the power of various online media. And so I do believe what we'll see, and I think it's happening right now, is that there just is going to be an explosion in online communication, whether it be sermons or seminars or classes or degree programs. I'm now at the University of Maryland. Now the University of Maryland Global Campus, UMGC, is one of the largest, if not the largest, online educational university in the world. And it's very large because it's so convenient. So I think the convenience and just the way it's delivered, sermons, you can hear it, you can play it back, you can review it, you can analyze it, you can listen again. You want. So I think that type of versatility has been extraordinarily positive, and I see that continuing.
I'll throw this next question out to anyone who wants to take it. This comes from a young person who says and asks the question about, I'm a high school senior. Should I take gap year until the educational situation stabilizes? Any advice for this young person?
Jackie, could I just briefly touch base on the employer side of that environmental aspect? I just briefly want to say,
Sure.
We've heard a lot about the behavioral health, the mental health. A lot of people that have really struggled with this. And there was a Harvard Business Review article that talked about loneliness being as bad for you as smoking cigarettes each day. So I think that was an interesting thing. I will say there was a review that came out that said 58% of employers are looking at changing their health plans, not to take away benefits, but to beef up the mental health. So I think, to your point in Kasi, and the question that you had, the effect on the environment, at least from the employer side, we're very, very concerned about just the mental health. And I think that that's something that we've seen across many industries as well. So now for your question on the high school senior, Donna actually had a great answer for this. She was thinking about this earlier today when we were talking. I'll let you jump in, Donna, if you won't mind.
Unmute yourself, Donna.
Brendan. Now, as many of our panelists have said thus far, we will not always be here. So someone taking a gap year is then delaying opportunities. If school is available, go for it. I do know of individuals who are being forced to take a gap year. There are college graduates, for example, they cannot go on to grad school because they've received a notification of acceptance, but delayed until 2021. So if there's an opportunity to start high school, let's move forward. 4 years from now, upon graduation, the world as we know it today will not necessarily be the same. Grab a hold of opportunities, be brave, be bold, move forward, expecting the best, be hopeful. That's what I would recommend to all of our young people. Don't stop, keep going. We are unfolding, the world is evolving differently. And before COVID, during COVID, after COVID, it will look different, but be prepared for whatever comes your way.
Excellent. Nkosi?
Yeah, I had a list of questions, but just hearing the answers, I feel like you guys answered a lot of them. But there was this one question that I did have that I saw. It was, what is social distancing or physical distancing supposed to teach me?
How to protect yourself.
Okay.
I mean, really, it's really a substitute for a treatment or prevention. There is none. So we're using this public health common sense strategy. You know that you know the method of transmission. So to the extent that you can get out of the, it's like you're getting out of the shooting range, as it were, then that becomes a way of protecting yourself and protecting others. It truly is it's really a community effort. It's not just you're protecting yourself, but you're protecting others at the same time. So it's a bi-directional benefit in doing this.
So Dr. Reese, tell me if this makes sense. This weekend, I took a nice long walk around my neighborhood. I had my mask in my hand because there was no one near me. I was alone, but if I saw someone coming, I put the mask on. Does that make sense?
It does.
So I could like walk along a beach or do a nature walk. If there's no one else around me, I don't have to wear the mask. But if I'm in the proximity of other people, I should put the mask on.
Yes. And again, that's why I spend a little time talking about why we wear the mask. Because again, sure, a virus can actually exist on a surface for a, let's say, several hours. It can exist in the air for a short period of time. So unless a group of runners just ran a few minutes before you and they were breathing really hard and huffing and puffing, and you then walked into it. But just generally walking out in the, having a nice walk, you can, this weekend did the same. I took a nice walk, a couple of miles. It was people. And thank you. When I saw folks coming, I put on a mask. And when I myself, and sort of I was walking around, and there's nothing to protect myself from or give anyone anything. So that's
So one last before I turn it over to Nkosi. Okay, I go to the grocery store, mask, gloves, everything. I get my groceries. I come home. I have a sanitizing station in my garage. I take everything out, put it on the table, and I sanitize each item. And before I bring it in the house, am I doing too much?
No, you're not. I'm very impressed that you're doing that. 'Cause that is the best way. Um, it really is, because you just don't know where things are coming. If you knew where they came from, so sanitizing them out to the extent you can, is really. There's some folks who actually, even people working in the hospital, they would come up and they undress in the garage and put their clothes in a hamper, go in and take a shower before they get into the house itself, into their bedrooms. But they don't come from the outside with their work clothes and walk right in their bedroom and dress with their clothes. So it's a few common sense, and I think that a virus can attach to your clothes, attach to the groceries that you bought, the grocery bag. And if you have a nice table, that's perfect. And you clean it up for you. So that is actually impressed by you saying that. And just we have the back room that we and is just for just for the house, and we have a table where we do the same thing.
Well, I'm glad to know all that extra time I spend is worth it. It puts another hour on the shopping. And Kose, do you have any more questions?
Yeah, I know for a lot of people, Netflix and Hulu and Amazon Prime and all those streaming platforms are people's best friends during this quarantine. But what are some creative ways people can social distance, or what are some creative ways people can stay entertained during this social distancing period?
I'm going to leave you. I'm going to leave you with a thought. It has been shown that in times in world history, during times of isolation, exile, quarantine, people have become most creative and most innovative. And examples of these, think of Mandela, 27 years in prison, 18 in isolation, in quarantine, as it were. Learned a language, became fluent in a language that he never knew. Learned political strategy that we saw was exercised when he became president. Sir Isaac Newton developed the gravitational theory in times of quarantine. We think of Beethoven. Beethoven wrote some of his best symphonies when he really he was imprisoned. He was totally deaf. One of his major pieces, when he performed it and had standing ovation, he never even knew that they were standing because he couldn't hear. He was in a different world. There are many other examples. Shakespeare is also one during the English War. So you can go and look at them. You'll see that either it is some people's decision to use that time wisely, or it is our own brains have gotten much more revved up during those times of forced quarantine. But I think what I'm suggesting to all of us is that we use this time to do something special that we wouldn't ordinarily do. Force ourselves to make a difference for not for anybody but for ourselves. Do something different, something rather aspirational, beyond our normal thinking. And in by the time the quarantine is over, we can surprise ourselves that I didn't think I could actually do this. Play the piano, could never thought I could have done it, but was able to practice 6 hours a day, something like that. But just I think those are things that have been done, and we could just challenge ourselves to do something that was just extraordinary that we would not have ordinarily done, but to prove to ourselves and to others that we have been able to do it.
That's beautiful. Doctor, that sounded like a great closing remark, but do you have more that you want to add as a closing remark before I turn it over to Donna Johnson Scott to give her closing remarks?
No, I think I will pass at this point. I'll stop while I'm ahead.
Donna?
I'm off mute. During Yasmin's presentation earlier, she talked about building a robust support system. Um, there are there is so much emotionally that we'll find out about ourselves during quarantine. That's another opportunity, I think, in Kosi, that we could use this time. Entertainment is great. Time with family, whether it's virtually, on the phone. My children do Zoom games. It's amazing to see what has come out of this pandemic. But again, use the time to build yourself, aspire to be great. There are so many that we can use. Jobs are available. Adventist Healthcare is hiring. We do have open positions. We come up with creative ways to ensure that there's a great connection, that you're able to sell yourself well, that you're able to present your skills, your talent in a very meaningful way. We're looking for young people who are innovative, creative, and again, in times like these, we may have to change, but change is great. When we cannot always change the direction of the wind, but we'll definitely let's together adapt or sail.
Thank you so much to our very talented guests, knowledgeable guests who gave us information, valuable information, and encouragement and hope, things to look for to get through what we're going through right now. And we will get through. And I once again want to thank God for this opportunity to serve and to be a part of CEOS and the wonderful work that they do. And I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Melbourne for his closing remarks.
Thank you, Jackie. I would like to thank you, our moderator, Ms. Webb. I'd like to thank Dr. Reese, Ms. Scott, and her team for your contributions to our knowledge, our physical, emotional, and spiritual well-being. Thank you for sharing your valuable time and knowledge with us. Thanks also to Mr. Plummer and those working behind the scenes, Mr. Daly and Mr. Hines. Let me also thank you, the audience, for joining us. We couldn't do these town hall meetings without you. In addition to Zoom, this program was live streamed and was also live on Facebook. These are difficult times, and the prospects are not encouraging. But I assure you that a better day is coming. There is a time for hope. I would like to thank you, our moderator, and the panel once again, as I invite you to join our next town hall next week at 7 p.m. Note the change of time, 7 p.m. The topic then will be parenting through chaos. Parenting through chaos. It will also be on Zoom, Facebook, and live stream. Please invite others to join you next week at 7 p.m. See you then. Goodbye to all. Have a good night.